You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. It's Wednesday, June 29th, 2022, here with my co-host, Kristina Dennis.
Hello. How are you, Damon Frank?
I am doing really well. It is another Recovered Life Day, another Recovered Life Show here with you in beautiful June in Southern California. A little hot, but it's always a little hot in June in Southern California.
I don't think that I think we forfeit the right to complain about weather if we're lucky enough to live in Southern California.
We do.
Yes,
we do forfeit that right. We do forfeit that right. Listen, a lot going on in the Recovered Life community. Tell us about our volley group, Kristina, and everything that we've been doing there.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank everybody for sharing, and following this show, the podcast. Please keep leaving your comments, but don't miss out on the Recovered Life community. You can join over at recoveredlife.us, and we have this very cool community that we're building over there via Volley, which allows people to communicate for a video. You don't have to be on video, but we really get to know each other. And you can ask Damon and I direct questions, and you can meet people all over the world. It is at the recoveredlife.us. And make sure you join and say hi. We'd like to get to know you.
Absolutely. So I think that the key here with this volley group is that there is so much free content on there, and there's so much interaction with coaches like us, and you can get on and ask questions. And that's the coolest part about it, because it's not just that you're listening. Like, one of the things I love about our volley group is that it's really three-dimensional. People are talking back. They're actually posting volleys, having discussions, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, it's so cool. I love that you could just ask a question. If you're in the middle of doing something and you're stuck, some people just get on there and ask a quick question. And then it starts a really, really cool conversation where we can both support each other and have a lot of fun. Sobriety is fun.
Absolutely, it is. And, one of the things that we were going to talk about today on the Recovered Life Show is about having fun and about happiness. And really the topic today is why living in the now is the key to happiness in sobriety. This is so hard to live in the now when we first come in to recovery, Kristina. It's really tough. I'll admit, like staying in the here and now, it's the worst.
Oh, to understand that all we have is this moment in time is, I think, a big life lesson for everyone. But there is something really special about those of us who are in the addiction world, because we so want to control things and we want to plan. And I know when I first got sober, I wanted to know when do I get the stuff? Oh, that's great. Yeah, I could see that. When does it, first of all, stop? When do the cravings stop? And then when do I get that job? And when do those promises come true?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? I think one of the things about addiction is it's all about escapism, right? It's leaving the here and now for a place that is not the here and now, that you don't have to worry about the here and now. And I think that one of the hardest things for people to do in recovery is to just get into the present space of where they're at, be quiet, and really just enjoy where you're at in the moment. It seems to be a struggle for almost everyone. I don't know anyone who enjoys it, especially in early recovery.
No. And it's the resistance to the fact that all you have is here and now that causes me the most pain. I still want to hold on to an idea that I can control the future. And look, there are things that I can do in the here and now that help, certain things, that help in producing certain results in the future. But truly learning to be in our body, in this moment, being fully willing to feel the feelings that are coming up now is a superpower. And I didn't know that when I first got sober. I thought that I needed to be paying attention to all the signs, and it would drive me to drink. It absolutely would.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to live in the present moment? Why do you think, especially, people that have addiction issues, why it's so difficult, like why it's such a struggle. I mean, it's a struggle for everyone.
It
I mean,
is.
everybody future trips, right? Is it that our
Mm-hmm.
minds are much quicker? I mean, I've heard that.
Yes. Yes,
That
I
our
think
minds are
so.
processing things much quicker. And I would also say too, some of the work that you do in codependency is this predictive thing. I think a lot of people that come in to recovery have a history of growing up in a household that had addiction. So they
Mm-hmm.
have some sort of codependence. So they're always thinking about what other people are going to do. They're thinking about themselves in relationship to other people and how they're going to fit in. And it makes the here and now
Absolutely.
very uncomfortable.
Absolutely, because that was a survival skill, to be always anticipating other people's behaviors. And, when we grow up in homes that, are dysfunctional or living with addiction themselves, we can be made to feel like it is our responsibility to take care of everyone else. And it becomes this life or death feeling. And I want to answer the question that you asked about why is it so hard? I feel like it is all about control. And when we are living in the here and now, we don't want to feel like we don't know what's coming, and we don't want to be lost in the moment. So we usually go to the past or to the future to orient ourselves and to say, oh, this is what's going to happen next. And when we start growing this skill, because it is a skill, when we start being okay with being in our bodies, then we don't miss the moments that are happening that are good.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. One of the things is with addiction is that this whole thing about this past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resentments, the past, what's happened in the past, reliving things in our head over and over and over again. It
Yes.
causes great unhappiness, but also not only does, we use the word happiness in the title of this, but not only does it drain your happiness, it really detaches you from people, which
Yes.
creates the happiness to begin with, because we find out that in recovery, community brings us much more than we think it would.
Oh, and in the life, I mean, the longest study for behavioral science is still going on, where it is the number one indicator of life longevity is, are you in community? And I believe that when we suffer from alcoholism, it's that intolerance of the unknown, right? That it is not tolerable for me to live in here and now, that we numb out. But what you learn is that not only are you numbing the fear and the bad feelings, you're also numbing the positive fears, the positive feelings, right? And so this takes a certain amount, like we have to exercise it like a muscle, where we start going, where is my body? I am here and now. I am, sitting in this chair. I'm grounding myself. What is really happening right now at this moment? Is it my resistance? Bless you. Is it my resistance to the unknown? Or is there something really happening right now that I need to attend to?
Well, what was really happening right there for me was a sneeze. So I apologize
Yes.
about that. A little allergy season
Little
here
tickle.
in Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm with you. It's this being trapped in the past. And look, here's the reality. Most people come into recovery and they have a past that haunts them. So they're
Yes.
running from bills, running from people, running from situations, running from employers, running from educational systems, running from institutions. It just
Yes.
stacks up. So I think that the fear of the past, and typically a lot of people come in, have alcoholic relatives or have been
Yes.
in that, right? In some sort of alcohol or dysfunctional home. But then we have
Yes.
the whole other side of this, which is future tripping, which I really think that is huge in the
Right.
recovery scene. What is going to happen? Like 5 minutes ago, they were drinking themselves to death. And now they're worried about what's going to happen,
When am I going to get my home?
48 hours from now. Yeah, exactly.
When do I get to retire? Right. And they just entered the workforce. And I joke, but it's not really funny. That intolerance to not having control. And here's the thing that we learn in recovery is we didn't have control anyway. Like life can be very arbitrary. Something can happen, right, that we have no control over. And that sometimes that fear, that untethered feeling was very difficult for me. I mean, I absolutely was trying to control. And that sounds strange to people who are not, in the world of alcoholism, or perhaps don't have the same issue. They're like, but you're so out of control. What do you mean that you need to control things? And that's why you drink to excess, right? Because they don't go hand in hand. But what we learn, right, in recovery, and what we learned through recovery, is that actually it was this obsession of being in charge and not being able to accept life on its terms that drove us to want to check out.
And this future tripping causes problems for us, I think, because what I've seen is, and look, in coaching Kristina, what happens is we get a front row seat of this. We see people who get sober, they start to create some sort of life, and then all of a sudden what they have in the here and now isn't enough. What's going to happen in the future dictates everything. And what I found just from my own personal experience is that future tripping is a waste of time.
Oh,
literally. It's such a waste of time. I wish I had the time back for all the time that I future trip. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. We are really not great magicians and predictors of the future. Like, we're really not. We're wrong a lot of the times.
Sure are. And, there's a lot of neuroscience that backs that up about why we do these things. First of all, when you plan, you're engaged in dopamine. And we alcoholics love our dopamine, right? That's one of the reasons why we're addicted to this substance, because it's one of the best dopamine producing, substances. And so we want to stay in that energy, but we don't grow the here and now chemicals. We don't focus on serotonin. Sometimes we get a little endorphins. Sometimes we have a lot of oxytocin for those codependents like myself, because oxytocin is the cuddle hormone. But we base a lot of our existence and our survival on dopamine. And it's that lack of balance that sets us up for failure.
So look, we've talked about, what happens when you're in the past. We talked about future tripping. What happens if you're living in the future? People that are listening to this right now are in recovery, Kristina, or want to be in recovery. So what they're thinking about is, how in the heck can I get in the here and now? And we're going to go over some of those tips about how we do this and how we do this for our clients after this quick break. If you are newly sober, trying to get sober, or you've been sober for decades and are looking to take your sobriety to the next level, the Recovery Breakthrough 6-week transformation concierge coaching program might be right for you. Have Damon Frank and Kristina Dennis build a custom roadmap to get you on the path to getting what you really need. Receive hands-on concierge coaching and stay focused and productive with our daily check-ins. If you're ready to experience your recovery breakthrough and start the journey towards the transformation you deserve, book a free get-to-know-you call today and find out what is possible in your recovery. To find out more about Recovery Breakthrough and to book your free call, go to recoveredlife.us. That's recoveredlife.us.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
Okay, we're back after that quick break. Listen, Kristina, people want to know, how do they get into the present? If they find out that they're constantly in the past, in the future, but never here and now, where we're told that happiness lies in the here and now.
Yes.
How do you get there, Kristina?
Oh my goodness. Well, first for me, it's always about addressing the nervous system, right? It's always about, where are my feet planted? How do I ground myself right now? And then there is these, we start taking agency with our thoughts, right? We realize that we're the thinker of our thoughts. So we direct our thoughts back to what is happening in this moment. And it might sound like I'm being silly, but narrating what you're doing, this is a tip that I use. If I'm in anxiety, if I've been triggered, I have to pull back and start taking control of my thoughts. So I will narrate, I'm going outside, I'm sitting in my chair. And a quick little meditation tip, because many of us don't know how to do this. I mean, we're not, totally settled when we first start, stopping drinking, is to put your feet on the ground, your hands over your knees, and then to tell yourself that's what you're doing. And it's called grounding. And if you're in a warm climate or we're hitting summer, you take those shoes off and you actually get connected. It's noticing the breath. It is actually recognizing that there is a difference between my hand and the air out here. And I know that sounds very okay, that's so basic. But until we address the nervous system, we're not going to be able to actually recognize what the here and now is.
Absolutely right. I think the nervous system is huge. I didn't even know what that was, right? But I
Right.
think if people are listening, go, Kristina, what are you talking about? I think it's a feeling. You could feel when your nervous
Yes.
system is all over the place, right? And
Mhm.
really a sense of being uncomfortable in the here and now is, I found, a big red flag that something's up with my nervous system, right?
Always.
You talked about you talked about the technique that you use to do that. One of the things that I have found that has been so helpful, Kristina, is literally having a conversation with myself. And I do this
Yes.
with my clients all the time. And I would say, okay, I need to come into the here and now.
Yes.
And I would start to say, one of the things that the here and now was so scary. I think it's scary for people in recovery because
Mhm.
that's the thing with alcohol and drugs and codependency and every other addiction we're trying to get out of.
Yes.
So we have a compulsion, and this is what's different than I think the average person who has a hard time staying in the here and now. People with addiction have a compulsion not to be there. Okay.
Yes.
We really do. We really do. And what I found is I'd ask myself a question because, a lot of my coaching has to do with asking different questions. So I'd
Sure.
ask myself a question. What's wrong with the here and now? Is there
Good.
anything wrong with the here and now? And I get no typically would come back,
Yes.
and then I would ask myself, I would say, why, what's enjoyable about the here and now? I just start rephrasing different questions, right?
So good.
And I found out that I had an internal dialogue that was going on with this compulsion not to be there, that I felt that it was a scary place. And I had to really rewire my brain to
Yes.
tell myself that being in the here and now, although it felt different, it was a valuable experience. And
Mhm.
if I kept doing it because I saw other people that were doing it, my nervous system would calm down and I would feel differently about it. And I think this is the key that I want to say. Do you find sometimes, Kristina, that whether you're doing it for yourself or helping one of your clients do it, being in the here and now doesn't feel good a
Not
lot of the
always.
times, like people say that it's going to right at first?
Not always. And I'm so glad that you brought up about our desire to escape here and now. And this is what I found. It's the fear of feelings that are much worse than the actual feelings. For me, trauma is a frozen experience that happened when I didn't have the tools to manage it. And fear gets such a bad rap, but the truth of the matter is we want to have fear. It would be very dangerous not to have some fear. But obviously, we are afraid of something that isn't going to kill us at that moment. And so learning about the feelings, starting to learn how to identify them, giving language to it, which helps us know how we need to act next, and realizing it's not that it doesn't feel good, it just feels different. And we can train, and I say nervous system, it's your autonomic nervous system. We can train our body to start tolerating moments of here and now. And then that allows us to recognize, which I believe is the third step, of the gratitude of what we have going on right then.
Yeah, I love that. I think that the main, focus is that I've learned is that really retraining myself to understand and really have that internal dialogue that I have everything that I need right here, right now. I'm
Yes.
okay right here, right now. And this is something I just have to tell myself all the time because the fact of the matter is I was most of the time okay
Yes.
right here, right? Even though bad things have happened in recovery, in the
Yes.
present moment, I got through it. I was fine.
Right.
Unless you're being chased by, a wild animal or you're getting hit by a car or whatever, you're probably okay in the here and now. And what I found is after that learned practice of doing that and also helping other people do it, what I found was that I would have times where I was no longer in the future or the past. I was
Right.
just okay. And I would be able to drop that obsessive thinking that a lot of people in recovery have.
Ugh, so true. I mean, and that's just practice. That is practice. That's getting used to it. Our brains are designed to have the shortest, quickest way, right? And they're lazy. They don't want to learn new ways. Our brains doesn't want to learn a new way. It was used to alcohol or drugs or codependent behaviors as the avenue of success to get us out of our fear, right? It was
Yes.
used to that. And so in the beginning, it's really important to hold tight and to learn these tools, because I know sometimes when I'm working with a new client, and sometimes when you and I are working with a new client, they are like, I want to solve this, or I want to improve my relationship, or I want to be here. How is learning how to breathe and sticking my feet in the ground going to help me? You have to
Absolutely.
train your brain, because if you are in a triggered state, if you are in fear, you don't have access to the prefrontal cortex anyway.
Well, like we had talked last week, we were talking about something that we knew about how your whole adrenal system that they're
Yes,
finding and nervous system just gets all jacked up. And, people in recovery, I found out that what would happen is even in sobriety, I would sometimes go through a fight or flight
sure.
constantly over and over and over and over again. That leads to a very unhappy life. So it's like being able to kind of ground yourself, getting in the here and now is really the key. I also find that this is the big secret that a lot of people don't talk about regarding relapse, Kristina, is that a
Yes.
lot of people, no one relapses in the present moment, awake, aware, and alive. I
No.
don't see it. I don't see people that are truly honest with themselves being okay in the here and now relapsing. It's
Right.
people that, and when I say people, that's anyone. That could be you and I. That's anyone, right?
Yes.
But people that are in the past or in the future, but
Right.
they're not here and right now. They get that signal, that craving. Hey, you know what? I know what will make this make a lot feel better. And that would
Yes.
be to drink, use alcohol, codependent relation, whatever that might be, whatever that is, right? I mean, don't you find that? It's like, I
So
don't see
true.
people going out in the past and the future or in the present. It's always the
Yes.
past and the future.
So true. And it's that intolerance. If you are stuck in the past, and what I want to define what I mean by stuck in the past, where you are in a state of unacceptance about your history and you don't want to feel the feelings about it. See, our feelings get frozen when we have trauma. It literally, they have, studies that show that the trauma brings us back to an age when we didn't have a lot of power and we didn't have autonomy. We weren't in situations where we could. And so that fear of how that feels can push us back to that age, and we don't actually grieve and have the stages of reaction that we need to. And that's what I mean by being stuck in the past. It should have been different, is different than it sucked and I'm okay now. And it's
Yeah.
important for people to understand that.
Absolutely. One of the things that one of the greatest things that I got from the 12 step in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous was a line in there. It says, lack of power was our
Hmm.
dilemma. I've always found that it always has to do with a lack of power or unmanageability. And that's what we were talking about on one of the last episodes about staying sober, or trying to get sober without therapy, AA, anything like that. That's some of the valuable things that you're learning through 12 step groups or therapists or groups or coaches, is that this how to deal with this feeling of lack of power.
Yes, yes. And it's too arbitrary for a lot of us. That's why, as children who are raised in dysfunctional homes, take on 100% of the responsibility, and that births our codependent patterns. It is all my fault that mom or dad are drunk, unhappy, sad. I'm going to curb my behavior. It's like we're too afraid at that point. Our brains cannot believe that it's arbitrary. And I mean, that's still the same feeling when you are a grown person wanting it to be different than it is right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think really the key is, with this lack of power thing is to just accept that you really didn't have the power to begin with, right?
Yes.
And that much of this is an illusion. And this is something that I think that the ego really fights. I know that's one of the reasons I don't like meditation a lot. I mean, I'm open.
Yes.
Meditation works great for me. I shared in my old school meeting a couple of days ago that hey, I really enjoy and get a lot out of meditation, but I dislike the process.
Yes.
Because it's a destruction of the ego. I don't want to know that I have lack of power. I don't want to feel like I'm unmanageable with things. I want to feel like I'm in control of things. But the reality in the here and now is that I'm just sometimes along for the ride, doing the best I can. Right.
Right. And why are we pounding in that you need to be this? It's not to destroy your ego. It's so that you don't miss the beauty that's in your life right now. It's so that you don't miss it.
Well, this is the key with people who have trouble staying minute to minute. Mm-hmm. Right. The secret to this is keep pulling back into the present, I have never seen anybody, maybe it's out there, look, I don't know, definitive in all cases, but rarely do I ever hear about anyone doing anything like that in the present. Yes. Right. So it's this ability to be able to pull back, and to try to live awake and aware and alive in the presence as long as you can.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because I don't want anybody to think that it's possible to never be in the future. It's that reminder to always return to what is happening right now. And am I okay?
Oh, the other day, Kristina, I'm just going to tell you, the other day I was out a good 15, 20 minutes. I was future tripping about something that was totally never going to happen.
Yes.
And then I went back into the past and I realized it was wow, that was 20 to 30 minutes of my life where I wasn't present, and what I found, the great thing, just to end this segment here with a little hope, Kristina, what I found is now, if I'm living in the past or I'm living in the future and I'm not in the present moment, not being in the present moment now causes me anxiety.
Yes.
Being in the past, because I've realized that makes me feel unhappy. Right. It gives me unhappiness, whether it's true, not true, all that other stuff's irrelevant. It doesn't make me happy. And so now, after being recovered for a while, going on this journey, I found that being in the present, it's kind of like insanity. Insanity feels very comfortable to new alcoholics.
Yes.
You get 2 years, insanity gives you emotional hangover.
Yes. And it is that, so what we are doing in the process is that we are growing new neural pathways, and the brain says, oh, I like this. And our nervous system communicates back to the brain and says, this is where we are happiest. This is where we get that gratitude. This is where we're going to stay. And you will start to recognize that you don't have a tolerance if you get into a dopamine trap. And there's all kinds of science behind it, but ultimately, right here, right now, is what every person has, and there is beauty in it.
Absolutely. This has been a great episode. This is going to do it for Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. We hope you go out and live your best recovered life. We will see you in a couple of days.
Bye.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.